and online collections. We're changing our tune this week. If you're interested in music, musicians, or sound from around the world, this webinar is for you. Jane will dive into databases, David will explore digitized material, and Tom will look further afield. As always, you can join in by going to slido.com and using the code OurOnlineCollections. We'll be around afterwards to answer your questions. Over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Sarah. Hello, everyone. Well, today I'm here to help you either search for a piece of music you know. We can find different performances across a range of musical genres, or just go on a journey of musical discovery. So we're here at our databases A to Z, and just a reminder that if you're not already a library member, you can click here to register and you'll be good to go in about 15 minutes or so. So we do have a subject for music here, and here are our music databases. And today we're going to look at the Nexus Jazz Music Library and also the Nexus Music Library. So here we are at the Jazz Music Library. Now, both of these databases are streaming databases, so you can listen to them on your device and save them for listening, links to them for listening to later, but you can't download them or burn them to CD. If you do want to purchase the tracks, anything that's available through iTunes, there'll be an indicator on the record level record, and you need to download either one of these apps to do that. Anyway, back to the database. As you can see, there's featured albums arranged on the home page, and a page also of new albums added. As you can see, this is current as of today, so they're regularly, weekly added, a new collection of CDs. The current count is up to just under 20,000 CDs. You can search by composers or artists. So there's an alphabetical list, or you can enter the name here and do a search. There's also several categories. So from nostalgia, from the beginnings of jazz through to more contemporary music. You can also search by label. Often labels are associated with particular musicians or particular styles of music, so that can be another category to limit to. You can also do an advanced search here, combining those search categories. So just for example, if I was interested in John Coltrane's trumpet music, I need to put his surname in first, and here we can add a featured instrument, trumpet. And here are our search results here. So as you can see, there's 5 albums there that include both Coltrane's music played by him and also by other performers. Now, for later listening, what you can do is save links to the music you're interested in revisiting. So you can do that either through playlists or favourites. Now, the favourites just creates a big long list with no organisation, but the playlists you can arrange by folders and categories. So here is, I've set up a few playlists. You do need to create an account to do that, which is separate from your state library account. And you can just, that takes just a few minutes, and then you've got your login details. You can use the same login details across both these databases, but it won't merge the lists. So you can see here, I've got Jazz for Afternoons and also a selection of trumpet CDs lists here. And again, if I wanted to play, I just click on that little blue arrow and it will start playing. And I can select the tracks I want to listen to, and you can see how number of tracks and the length of the play. And favourites, again, it's just a list there of tracks, and you can just click on the arrow and off you go. So that's the Nexus Jazz Music Library. Now we'll head over to the Nexus Music Library. This is focusing more on classical music. There are some more contemporary music inclusions, but basically it's classical music. And at home, here we have, there's nearly there's over 150,000 discs, and again, material added regularly, and the same search categories. We've got people, composers and artists. You can search by name there. Categories. So this is a broader array of categories in the different musical performing arts, choral music, ballet, opera, as well as these categories at the bottom, world music, international music. Again, the labels. So these first three you can combine into a advanced search. So for example, if I was interested in the cello music of Johann Bach, now this particular database wants you to choose from the drop down list, sometimes anyway. Let's see what happens this time. And we're going to look for the cello. Cello. Here we go, Johann Bach. And search. Oops. Sometimes that works. We'll try Elgar, that's right, Elgar. Press enter, and here we have Edward Elgar. And again, we'll choose the cello. And search. And here we have a list of CDs which include Elgar's cello music mixed with other performers and other pieces of music, as well as his own work. The big difference here is the resources section, which includes a lot of resources which are very useful for students of music, as well as the people who are actually studying music. There's a musical dictionary. This musicology section is interesting. There's a lot of essays on a range of topics, including now articles are starting to come through in music in the time of the coronavirus. So you can see there's a very broad opportunities to explore all ranges of music in that section, the musicology section. There's also here essays on different periods of music. There's curriculum supporting material. There's also a large junior section for children. Section for opera and pronunciation guides, musical terms. So there's a lot to explore there. And again, we've got the same playlist and favourite functionality. Oh, please try later. But basically that works the same as the playlist in the jazz library. You can play from the blue arrow at the top, and clicking on this treble clef here will, when you've got a music selected, here we go, will reveal the control panel there at the bottom to stop and start. And you can see there's the iTunes opportunity if you decide that you'd like to buy this piece of music. Well, thank you for listening to that. I hope you enjoy exploring the Naxos music databases. And now I'll hand over to David, who's going to talk about more things musical in the library catalogue. Thanks, David.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane. The library catalogue is central to accessing a wide range of related or music-related material available in the library. We're going to be focusing on material that has been digitised, either by State Library Victoria, or the catalogue also allows us to link to other databases for material that we may also hold, but not have digitised. One caveat to a lot of this is copyright. Copyright means that the libraries can digitise material pretty much that is out of copyright freely. And that's where most libraries and organisations and institutions have focused their digitising and their work. One really good example of this is sheet music or scores. Often researchers or even performers visit the library wanting to obtain the sheet music of particular songs. And the catalogue is the easiest way to access that. Let's use that classic Australian ballad, Click Go the Shears. So simply type in the title. And before I hit enter, a couple of things. You have the option before you do a search of choosing whether you'd like the material to be online or not, or you can just simply search everything. For this example, I'm just going to leave Click Go the Shears as everything. So we do our search and we come back with 89 results. You'll see down the side to the right there, the resource types that we have. And with Click Go the Shears, we have 15 scores. So we can use these facets to narrow down to those scores. And you'll see the results there, 15. If we only want online material, we can choose online items, and that narrows us down to 3. Earl Ives' folio of Australian folk songs is a pretty good example. It's one that State Library has digitised. And as you can see though, or rather as you can't see, Click Go the Shears isn't in the title. However, our cataloguers have done a fantastic job. And what they've done is in that folio of songs have indexed each of the ones that are in it. So we know Click Go the Shears is in it. We know there's an online resource, so we can simply click on that. And we're taken to the digitised image. There's Burl. There's his material. Now, because I know that it's on page 13, I can go straight there. And there we have the music for Click Go the Shears, digitised by the library. You can download that if you like. You can print it out. All there. Let me just remove that. Okay. Excellent. As I said, the catalogue will also tell us whether our library has it or whether other libraries have digitised it. A good example of this is that cheeky American wartime ditty, Wee Wee Marie, spelled as you would expect, not in the French. Wee Wee Marie. And the library has in fact 3 versions of Wee Wee Marie. This one is available online, so we can click on that. And as the State Library of Victoria hasn't digitised it, we have indicated that it has been digitised by the Library of Congress. So we can visit the Library of Congress, and they have slightly different layout, but nevertheless, here is the music for Wee Wee Marie. Oh, I should do the French out. Wee Wee Marie. And again, you can download this in either PDF, JPEG, different sizes. So really quite efficient. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that there's another version available online. The difference here is that this one was published in Australia, in fact in Melbourne, as opposed to New York. This time, if we click available online, rather than taken to Library of Congress or the State Library of Victoria, we're taken to the National Library of Australia, who have also digitised the Australian edition. This is taken to Trove. A lot of you will be familiar with Trove. This is just one other area of the database. Here are the Australian details. The Trove view is really good. It will tell you, give you information about the item itself. Importantly, it will give you information about the copyright. So you can decide what you want to do with that. And again, you are allowed to download that, and you're given different forms, and you can even choose the pages that you want to be able to do that. So really flexible. But what's really good is that our catalogue allows you to have access to that if we have a catalogue record for it. Okay. Excellent. Okay. One of the other regular types of inquiry we receive concerns musical acts. And again, the library catalogue allows you to, is your first stop for identifying material. Let's take a band about which there may be some information. This time though, when we do our search, we'll narrow immediately to online material. So this is the band I chose, AC/DC. Okay, so this search just tells us we're going to look for anything with AC/DC that's online within the library catalogue. We do our search and we come back with 21 results. Now, disappointingly, the first one has absolutely nothing to do with AC/DC, the rock band. It's actually a Pram factory poster for a play called AC/DC. But nevertheless, the rest of the material here is online and relates to the band. It includes websites, as you can see here. This is a really good sort of fan site. And the good thing here is that when you go into the catalogue record, you'll see there's two links for access. First one is the publisher site, and that's the site as it is today. Now here we go. As you'd expect, loud, bold, colourful, featuring on Malcolm Young at the moment. Really good. However, websites come and go. And what's really good here is the National Library's Pandora project, which archives websites over time. This particular website has been chosen by the National Library to be archived, so that regardless of whether that website stays on the web or is taken down, we will always have a record of that website. So this has been archived 3 times, and at any time you can go in and click on that, regardless of whether the website is live or not. So that's a fantastic initiative from the National Library of Australia. We'll always have access to that AC/DC website. The other electronic items that are really of interest here are the ebooks. Now, AC/DC, a lot has been written about AC/DC, and quite a bit of the, or some of the material that we hold is in the ebook format. And you can see those here. Dirty Deeds is an ebook. So simply we can go into the ebook page by clicking available online, view the ebook, and we're taken directly into that book, except that I've been timed out, so that's not good, is it? Let's try that again. Ooh. Oh, you're all going to see my login details. Nobody look. Now here we are at Dirty Deeds. We can either read that online by clicking on the link there, and the book comes up. We can read about Mark Evans' life in AC/DC, and I'm sure there's a bit of dirt in there. So, excellent. And the other ebooks are there as well. It also includes a reference book, so Contemporary Musicians, which is part of the Gale Research Database. And a few other resources that mention AC/DC. The further down you go, Dave O'Neill must be a fan. The further down you go, less likely results. Okay, so AC/DC. that would be the same way you'd go about that, doing that for any band. I want to finish with two digitised picture collections that have musical connections to Melbourne in particular. First is the Radialis Collection. Radialis was a man about town, and he had a camera through the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And with that camera, he took lots of photos about various different aspects of Melbourne life. The photo you see behind me, Ross Wilson, is from the Radialis Collection. So if you have a while to spend and you want to look at some photos, it's really easy to find them via the library catalogue. Start with Radialis, and then if you're interested in any particular bands, in this particular case, Skyhooks. Yep, Rennie was obviously at a concert at some stage. And we have some Skyhooks photos. There we go. Shirl the Curl in all his glory, and a terrific uniform, terrific suit there. Skyhooks. Try a band, have a go, try a band. See if your favourite Melbourne band from that period was in Rennie. Very disappointing that apparently Rennie never got to an AC/DC concert. No results for AC/DC. The other thing you can do is try something like a more general search, something like rock groups. Again, 33 results there. Various Melbourne bands, Mondo Rock, Joe Camilleri, even Pink Floyd, not a Melbourne band, but obviously in town. There's that photo. Okay, so plenty to explore there at your leisure. See how you go. I'm going to finish with the Continental Cafe. Continental Cafe was a Melbourne institution, a venue for artists from all levels of the recording industry, or in fact, all entertainment industry. You can read about the cafe in this excellent blog by Sarah Ryan, which is on the State Library Victoria website, to give you a bit of an idea. The posters for the Continental Cafe were plastered all over Melbourne. Copies of posters are held at the library. Not only are they held at the library, they have all been digitised. The easiest way to find them? Yes, you guessed it, check the library catalogue. Again, we're still set to online here. Simple. Do our search, and 973 of them. And as you can see, even these first 10, a fairly wide range from hunters and collectors to Bob Down. The one that I'm really disappointed that I missed, and again, as an example of the variety, is this one here. Lunch with Paul Keating. The man who took the ramrods from nowhere to oblivion, and the only Australian Prime Minister to appear on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. One performance only, $95 for lunch, beef or chicken. But if you only want a standing room, $35. I would have paid the 95, I think. Again, explore that to your heart's desire. Enjoy the nostalgia, or if you're not old enough to make that nostalgia, a really interesting view into the Melbourne entertainment industry of that period. And now I'm going to pass on to Tom. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, David. That was great. David's giving you a good idea of what you can find through the library catalogue. I'm going to look a little bit further afield, still looking at music and other kinds of sound that you can find in collections in Australia and around the world. So one place to start exploring collections from around Australia is Trove. So David already mentioned Trove and talked about how items in the library's collection that have been digitised by the National Library and other places are accessible on Trove, and we've linked to them where we can. But using Trove, you can search not only the National Library's collection, the State Library's collection, but also many other collections from around Australia. So it's a great place to explore what's available in music. So at the moment, we're looking at a new version of Trove, which is going live tomorrow. So it looks a little bit different if you're familiar with Trove, but this is what Trove is going to be looking like from tomorrow for the next little while. So thought I would give you a sneak preview today, but essentially most of the functionality is the same, and there's a few additional features, but we won't go into any detail about those today. But Trove's very similar to the library catalogue. You can search across a range of categories here, like David did for online items, but the Trove categories are more focused around material type. So if you just look down here, there's a music, audio, and video category, but I'm not going to select that straight away. I'm just going to put in a search for Nick Cave and see what comes up. So I've put quotes around a Nick Cave there, so I'm not just searching for any Nick or any caves, but the musician in particular. So while this loads, should come up, here we go. So it defaults to newspapers and gazettes at the top, which is probably what most people might know Trove about, because it's a very popular collection that you can access through this website. But if you scroll down, you'll begin to see there's a whole range of material that's available. And you can also see above the search bar here, there's a list of the different categories that we could limit to. So the thing to keep in mind with music, video, and audio here is it's talking about the format of material, not about subjects or genres or anything like that. So it means that you're going to find things about musicians and music in a lot of these categories. So you can see here, Nick Cave has been interviewed in an article here, in a number of articles, and that you can access them through the newspapers and gazette section. But if we go across to music, audio, and video, I'll see what's there. So same as the library catalogue, on the right-hand side, there's a range of filters that you can use to further limit or refine your search to what you're most interested in. So it also is helpful to have a look at because it gives you an idea about what's in this kind of collection or what's in this category. So you can see here, there's a whole range of sounds, videos, audio books. But the other one that's interesting is printed music. So like David showed you, you can access a whole range of sheet music through collections from around Australia on Trove, but you would come to this music, audio, and video category to be able to limit it to the printed music there. If we scroll down a little bit further, there's also the access. So again, you can limit it to online. Most of the things listed here are not online, and that's because a lot of this material would be in copyright. So if you have a look, these videos and sound recordings of Nick Cave, they're not available online, but you can request them from these different universities. But what there is a lot of available online is other sounds. So these are things like interviews that have been recorded on the ABC across a number of shows. And there'll be a range of other material. Here we can see the printed music and a few more interviews that are available. So Trove's a great place to begin if you're looking for Australian collections. And there's a whole range of material, and it's searching across a broad range of different institutions. So it's a great place to start. But another good resource if you're interested in music and sound is the National Film and Sound Archive. So they're based in Canberra, but they do have access points in most major capital cities. So if there's something in their collection you're interested in, there is ways of getting access to it if it's not available online. But the best way to find what's available in their collection is you click on the collection tab across the top here, and they've got a catalogue search like we've seen for Trove and the library catalogue. So yeah, again, a reminder that a lot of their collection is going to be in copyright, so you're not going to be able to access all of it online. But if you do find something that you want to access, there's some helpful information here about getting access to that and under what conditions you can use it and how you can use it. But so you can access more of the online things. The staff at the National Film and Sound Archive have also created some great online exhibitions and curated collections about their material, which gives you a good overview of the types of things they've got, and also an easy way to access and browse. So you can see here, they've got a whole lot of material, 18 videos around skiing, Australian tennis stars, all sorts of things that you can explore. Mad Max films. So there's a whole range of collections that you can just browse through, or you can also limit here by categories. So if you're interested in sound or radio, and then subject as well. One that I think is worth having a look at if you've got some time is the Sounds of Australia, which is a project that the National Film and Sound Archive started in 2007. So we'll just go here to the Sounds of Australia for 2019. So what basically they asked for nominations from people around Australia to recommend sound recordings that are at least 10 years old and that represent significant cultural events or happenings in Australia. So they could be music, so there's lots of songs, but also interviews, advertisements, jingles, things like that. And every year they have a group of experts that review those and then add them to the Sounds of Australia list. So if we click on here, we can open up the full list, which has things dating back to the 1890s. And you've got a list here. You can kind of explore Australia's cultural history by listening to it, which is a very interesting way to learn more about the history of Australia. So there's a whole range of recordings and things available there, which I definitely recommend having a look at. So that's the National Film and Sound Archive. So we'll jump a little bit further afield over to the UK. So there's amazing collections of sound material across the world. And the British Library have spent a lot of time digitising their collection. So there's more than 90,000 recordings that they've made available through British Library Sounds. And you can see here the kind of categories that they cover. So if you're interested in not just music itself, but other forms of art and history and things like that, there's an amazing collection of oral histories here that all kind of relate to significant UK figures. Across a whole range of categories that you can kind of browse through and observe as well. So I'll just click on art here to give you an example. So with British Sounds, the one thing to keep in mind is not all of the material is available for you to access in Australia. So some of the material, again, for copyright reasons, is only available either in the UK or through educational institutions. But if you look at browse through any of these collections where it says recordings in this collection can be played by anyone, that means you'll be able to listen to them in Australia. And they've got different ways of browsing through these collections here. So we've got the categories, and then within each collection, alphabetical lists. The other one that I find really interesting, if you're interested in sound, is this nature and environment. So there's a huge collection of wildlife recordings. So a different kind of music, perhaps, if you're into bird watching, but you could listen to nature here and select birds. And there's a vast list of bird calls that have been recorded, and then you can listen to through the British Library. So a lot of the music on the British Library Sounds isn't accessible in Australia, but if you're interested in classical music and jazz and things, I'd recommend definitely looking at Nexus that Jane's already showed you, because you can access a lot of the music through that database, even if it's in copyright, because the library does subscribe. So if we jump continents again, we can have a look at the Library of Congress. So David gave you a sneak peek into the Library of Congress and one of the pieces of sheet music that they've digitized, but they have, again, a vast collection. So the easiest way to explore music collections through the Library of Congress is we come up to these menu bar up here in the top right and click on that, and then click on Discover. We can scroll down and you're able to, again, look at music by format type. So audio recordings, if you're interested in recordings, or if you're interested in printed music or music notation, you can select that category here, and film and video. So they're all broken up into different categories in that archive. But we'll click onto audio recordings, and then you're able to search within their catalogue. Again, it's similar to Trove and our catalogue. There's filters on the on the left-hand side this time, but they work in a very similar function, a similar way, or you can use the search bar across the top. I think it's also, with these vast collections, sometimes it's good to have a bit of a browse to see what's available. So if you click on the collections with audio recordings, you'll be able to see the types of collections that contain audio recordings within them, and then search within those if there's something of interest as well. So again, there's a wide variety of traditional and kind of folk music that's covered in these collections. As well, if we look down further, whole collection in their national jukebox of records and things like that that have been digitized. So again, an amazing array of things that you can explore through the Library of Congress. So that's just a very quick kind of overview of some of the other collections that you're able to access from around the world, but that's only just the beginning. So if you're interested in researching music and sounds, the other great thing that I'd recommend, and we have this for many different subject areas, is the library's research guides. So this is back to the State Library's homepage. And if we go under Search and Discover, and under Research Tools, you'll see research guides here. Also, if you're looking for the Nexus database that Jane was talking about earlier, the A to Z database there is where you can find it. But we'll go over here to Research Guides. And this is the list of all the research guides available through the library. So under Subjects, on the left-hand side, you can scroll down. And here under Music, we've got a guide about finding music scores and popular songs. So if that's an area of interest for your research, that's a great place to begin. And we've got a whole range of guides on different subjects. So that's a kind of a bit of a look further afield beyond what you can find in the library's collection. But now we might go and see if we've got any questions. So just a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, just go to slido.com and put in our online collections as the code, and there should be a link just below the video, and then you can ask your question there. But we've got a few questions already. So the first one is one for David. I think he's already given us a little bit of an insight, but somebody's asked about the gentleman behind you, David. Maybe if you could give us a little bit more detail about that image.
No worries. That's one Rennie Ellis image, and that's Ross Wilson on stage, formerly of Mondo Rock. And we were actually talking about him before we went, I don't know if you call this going to air, but about how Ross Wilson's still going around today. So that photo was from the 1980s, but Ross still going around today.
There you go. Thanks very much, David. And I've got a question for you as well, Jane, just about facilities for playing music in the library and what we have available. If you're...
Unmute. We do have facilities in the library for playing and listening to music, but currently they're out of commission due to coronavirus restrictions. So you can listen to those two databases that I showed you, plus some others that you'll find under that database's A to Z list, but you would need to bring your own headphones. And you'd also need to book a visit at the library, which you can do online, or you can ring up, I believe, and also make a booking for a session to come to the library, because we do need to limit access. But when we are able to provide full access to our musical collections again, we do have an enormous collection of records and CDs that you can order from the catalogue and play on equipment in our Heritage Collections reading room, and also streamed to workstations in the art library. We've also got a couple of listening posts where library staff curate collections that you can come in and stick the headphones on and listen to music for a couple of hours in a comfy seat in the art library.
Thanks so much, Jane. I think that's all the questions we've had today, but hopefully that gives everyone a good overview of the types of music and sound collections and material you can find through the library. And just a reminder before we go as well that updates about the library's reopening you can find here on the library's homepage, and you can also book visits to the library. And right down the bottom of the library homepage, we've got our Ask a Librarian service. So if you have any other follow-up questions or you need some help with your research, we're always available through the Ask a Librarian service to send your questions through, and we can assist further. But thanks, Jane and David, and thanks all for watching. We hope to see you again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.